Hello, Athena Lamnisos, the Chief Executive of the Eve Appeal.
Fantastic to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me for this conversation, Athena. So my first question to you today is, what do you think is the one most valuable thing that you do to help your people to shine? I know there's not many of them at the Eve Appeal, but it's still need to help them shine.
Well, there aren't many of them in terms of core staff, but there's an army of them in terms of volunteers and, of course, in terms of scientists and researchers who sit behind us and actually carry out the work that we're fundraising and awareness raising for. I don't know. I mean, there are so many things that you do to inspire people, but really the thing that engages staff and volunteers and the researchers is the cause and contact with the cause. And that means contact with the women, their families and loved ones who are affected by gynecological cancers. That's what really drives them on and makes them give 110%. That direct contact and really knowing that what they're raising and in terms of money and awareness is making a huge difference to women's lives.
So how do you get that contact? How do you make sure that all the people who are working for you have that regular contact?
Well, that's one of the fantastic things about working for a small charity. You genuinely can have those relationships. When supporters phone up, they are speaking very directly to our fundraisers. They're speaking very directly to the people who are writing appeal letters. They're speaking very directly to other volunteers who are out on the streets raising awareness. And so it's really encouraging and valuing and putting engagement right at the top of the agenda for all members of staff. And we do that in a whole range of ways. I really encourage people to go out and about. I encourage people to meet face to face as much as possible, to pick up the phone. You can't underestimate the power of a conversation as opposed to an email. And what we find, and I'm sure everyone finds with young people coming through today, it's pretty alien picking up the phone. But a conversation is a very, very powerful engagement tool.
Yeah. Great. So if you don't mind sharing with us, Athena, what do you feel that is the biggest challenge for your people right now, and how are you helping them to meet that challenge?
Well, we're a small charity with a very big ambition. We want to change the face of gynecological cancers, and we want awareness of gynecological cancers to be as high as breast cancer. There's absolutely no reason why it shouldn't be. And so we've got a big challenge, but we're a small team. So actually, that's probably the thing that is the biggest challenge. It is very much a team-based organisation. We all have to do a bit of everything, and we have to behave not just in terms of our job roles and specific responsibilities, but we have to muck in the right sense of the words, really. And that means having a very can-do attitude and really turning your attention to all sorts of things and being very fleet of foot. We really are small, and we've got a huge ambition. And to say we work hard and fast is kind of an understatement. So keeping people going in those circumstances is a big challenge.
And how do you do that? What sort of strategies do you have to kind of push people through that?
Well, saying thank you goes a long way, and also really making sure that people understand why it's necessary and why we all have to take on different roles. And I think the real proof is when you see it working, you see what team-based working can do. It really does deliver for people, and it delivers a huge sense of positivity and satisfaction.
So how do you manage to muck in with everyone else, so kind of handle all the day-to-day stuff and keep your chief exec strategic vision going? It must be even harder in a smaller organisation than a bigger one.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think that part of the answer to that is quite personal. I'm not someone who has walls and a ceiling around their home life and their work life. It's very blurry for me. Work and life is as one. That's not to say I don't have a home life, but I don't have walls and a ceiling around things. That's the best way of really putting that. I think that what is difficult is doing the longer term planning stuff rather than reacting to the day to day and the opportunities that come our way. And that's a real balancing act. And the trustees are quite supportive of helping me do that and spend quite a lot of time saying things which sound easy but are quite tricky about taking time out of the office and putting time in for planning. But board meetings and a proper strategy process with timelines is very exercising because it means you have to do some thinking to meet those deadlines. Saying that, we've had a really successful year. We've raised more money than the Eve Appeal has ever raised, and that's absolutely fantastic. What it does mean is that I do feel like we're running to catch up on plans for next year. And with fundraising, as we all know, lots of things are one-offs and aren't directly repeatable. You've got to start again and you've got to build your pipeline. So you're building your pipeline for years 2, years 3, not necessarily for the next financial year. So I wouldn't say I've got it right, but it is about having a process that you stick to or try and stick to.
Sure. And you talked a little bit about not having boundaries between home and life. I mean, I'm interested to hear what you feel your kind of work-life balance is like, and whether you have any little hacks that you make sure you do keep an element of that in your life.
Well, I suppose it's just prioritising, really. I mean, there are things that I wouldn't miss for the world and things that, where I do think, right, I am not going to check in my email. But I have to say, with iPads and the rest of it, it is the first thing that I do when I open my eyes in the morning, and it's pretty much the last thing I do before I go to sleep at night. So, I think one of the things I've learned to do is that I used to do a lot of is whenever I had downtime, as in I was travelling between meetings or on long train journeys, I used to work solidly, and I've now become addicted to downloading things onto my iPad, and I listen to the Archers or things which are completely separate. And that actually, once you have that downtime and use a different kind of part of your brain, I actually find that I've then come to solutions over work issues when I've got to the end of that journey, even though I haven't been poring over papers, etc.
Interesting. I like that idea, and of course, because you're rejuvenating yourself. Otherwise, there's just no space to do that. So, what do you think, Athena, is the sort of nicest thing about being the chief exec of the Eve Appeal?
Oh, I love being in a leadership position. I love working very directly with beneficiaries, with trustees. I love working with the science team and their brilliant minds. There's a whole set of things there. And what really feels fantastic to me is being able to be at the centre of that and affect change. I couldn't do it on my own. It's very, very team-based, but I can lead it, facilitate it, and be very fleet of foot about things. And, I've got no excuse anymore not to help things happen. Other things might get in the way and there might be processes to go through, but it's just great being in that position where you can see what change needs to be made and make it happen.
Great. Thank you so much for answering the questions, Athena. And many thanks. Have a good day.